Coming up on this week's episode of Front End Fire, Theo is making a big switch. Is AI killing OSS as well? And we take a look back at the rising stars of 2025. Let's get right into this episode. Hey everybody, welcome back to our very first episode of 2026 of the Front End Fire podcast.
Feels good to be back. Yeah.
It does. We took a couple weeks off to spend time with our friends and families over the holidays, but it is nice to be back and recording with you guys. So I am your host today, Paige Niederinghouse, and I am joined by my co-hosts, Jack Harrington.
Hello.
And TJ Van Tol.
Hey, everybody. And Jack, I noticed the Miami sweatshirt. So as we're recording this off a big win. So
Oh my gosh, that was excruciating. You know, I was watching it with a whole bunch of Miami fans last night. I was wearing this. Actually, I just jumped out of bed anyway. And still had this on. But yeah, wow, that was a nail biter all the way to the end. Yeah,
you have the benefit of watching it on the West Coast, so you're watching it in the at evening with friends. I'm just staying up way past my bedtime to watch these games.
Oh my gosh, crazy! And now we're in the championships. Yay!
Yeah,
it's exciting.
First time in a long time.
One of the few things that people still watch in real time too, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's basically it.
Yeah, watching all the bad calls in real time.
All right. Well, we will talk about sports, but we also have a lot of web development stuff to talk about. It has been a busy start to 2026. So let's talk about some news. All right. So the first bit of news, I think, is going to come from Jack today.
Sure. So a lot of folks are jumping off of the Next.js train onto the TanStack Start train. I'll mention that TanStack Start is still in RC, guys, but it's good. It's stable. And one of the biggest high profile switches recently has been that Theo Brown, who is a YouTuber and also the creator of a system called T3 Chat. I don't know all that much about T3 Chat. I think it's just, it's basically an AI interface. Did a big video on how he recently and his team switched from Next.js to TanStack Start and all of the advantages of that. And I gotta tell you, I watched Theo through his career. We hung pretty early on, and then you kind of. So it was cool to see that he's now to 450,000 subscribers. It's really going well, but it was really insightful content. Actually, it was interesting to see his takes on how different Next.js is from TanStack Start and all the advantages that he found in moving to TanStack Start. So it's a good technical video. So if you want to see if it's the right call for you, then I think that's a pretty cool thing. Interestingly, he was on the app router. So the T3 stuff was actually on the most cutting edge kind of Next.js stack. And interestingly, he was spending a lot of his time working around the Next.js app router. In fact, he had React Router actually installed in the app router, which what are you doing? But basically he was circumventing the entire thing, and it was what are you doing? And so finally they moved over to TanStack Start, and they found that they were actually kind of more in line with what the framework is actually doing. They weren't fighting the framework, which is it was never a good place to be.
Did he happen to mention how long it took him to migrate from Next to TanStack? That's what I've always interested in, is people do this kind of stuff, but is it a quick progression, or is it one of those things that takes months?
Of the PR.
Okay.
Didn't mention necessarily, I think, that the time involved, but I don't think it's a ton of time, but it was a massive change. The reason being that he wasn't really using any RSC stuff in the app router, so it wasn't like he had to unwind any of that. It was more just an unwinding of being on React Router. So he's kind of on a remix app router weird hybrid. So I don't know. And I don't know if that's indicative for a lot of folks. I know you guys are on the Pages router still. I think that would be a much easier transition. So it's basically taking your get server-side props and turning those into loaders. That's basically it, Yeah.
It's definitely interesting. There's some built up Next, I think, anxiety around it, people starting to get frustrated around it. I think that's also just the nature of when these systems get really big, because we've seen that happen with React and we've seen that happen with lots of frameworks before it. But this is a pretty big move in that direction. And I mean, personally, I think I continue to hear really good things about TanStack Start. It's just whenever anything is new, it just takes time for an ecosystem to build up around it, because usually the first few people in, there's just less content out there. There's less tooling. There's less videos. So the path to actually migrating to a new thing is just a little bit harder. But that's just how this always goes. And it takes time. And I think this is kind of a step in that direction.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we come out with like a cookbook, and we have a cookbook already for like LLMs to do the work of doing that conversion between like the pages router. You know, can that help people like accelerate that process and make fewer mistakes in that process? So
I've been a little bit frustrated with a few things in Next. So Next has been making a lot of changes recently, right? They switched to pages router to app router if you go back far enough, and then Turbo Pack coming in, React compiler. There's a bunch of stuff in Next that force you to change stuff, and they have their like code mod thing where they're like, oh, just run this automated check. Those things have not worked for me in any capacity. And in fact, like I'm better off just asking Claude to have a go at it than the code mods, because I don't trust after those things run, because I've just had such bad experiences with them not actually migrating things successfully that I just don't even run them anymore. So, I mean, overall, the Next is still solving the problem we have. There's not really a reason to migrate just to migrate. It sounds like in Theo's case, if you're having an issue where if fundamentally the framework is you're working around the framework, those are the times where you start to consider whether a migration is worth it or not. But typically speaking, in the front end world, migrating just to migrate is genuinely speaking not really a good idea. Like usually you want to have something that's blocking you or something that's preventing you from doing something before you want to take that plunge. Sounds like in Theo's case that was the case. At least for us, speaking personally, that's not an issue at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, if you're working for a company and you're building web applications, you will have an uphill battle just saying that you want to migrate to the newest, hottest framework. You're like, I'm done with React. I want to go to SvelteKit, or I want to do TanStack, or want to do something else. Unless you have a good reason, like your version is being deprecated, because that's what happened to me when I worked for Home Depot. Was we were on an Angular 1 app, and we had gotten Yes, this was a decade ago, but we had gotten to the point where Google had said, we're going to stop supporting this. We're going to stop doing patches and security updates and anything, really. We're turning the lights off, essentially. So we had to move. And then we chose to go with React. It was either go to Angular 2 or Angular 5 at that point, or it was just go to React and do something completely different. And the team wanted to learn React, so we ended up going in that direction. But, you know, if it hadn't been for that, we would have absolutely kept kicking the can down the road for as long as we possibly could on Angular, because it worked. It worked well enough. It was a terrible developer experience towards the end because it had gotten so big and bloated that it was really hard to add on to. But unfortunately, a lot of times product just doesn't want to hear that. They just want you to keep adding features and supporting the users. And unless you can really make a good case for why you should migrate, it's a hard thing to do. But testimonies like Theo of this was our problem and we migrated and it's made it all better. That's the kind of stuff that TanStack needs, and that's going to make other people consider it, take interest, give it a try. That's the kind of stuff that you need.
Especially for Greenfield, where you don't have that problem of legacy. That's where this sort of stuff makes a huge deal, because you're really starting from a blank slate. So why not pick the newest and trendiest thing if you think that there's something solid there that's going to be stick around?
I do think the CVEs are starting to like get people like, ooh, okay, what's going on here? Because like React or Next.js had its CVEs because of the server functions. And I think for some folks, they weren't even using server functions, or certainly weren't using server functions in a way that would cause the CVE, or open them up to that. So like, what do we, are we getting? We're getting a security risk for features that we don't need.
Yeah.
And then now Remix has shown up with like 6 CVEs and and then Laravel's Laracast stuff.
Hmm.
Laravel has now a full on React to Shell level CVE. So yeah,
Yeah.
lots of security issues out there. So
Yeah. And I was just reading a write-up yesterday that somebody did on GitHub of a company called Mintlify, which apparently has become an AI document generating site that's used by a lot of large companies like Vercel, like X, like OpenAI, and some group of 16-year-old hackers figured out how they could do injection attacks through Mintlify's AI docs and just push JavaScript and all kinds of stuff that shouldn't be available or allowed into those pages, and then potentially steal credentials from users who are visiting to read doc sites. So yeah, there's a lot of attack vectors. The more stuff you have online nowadays, it seems like than ever before.
I feel like that was one of our 2026 predictions. Just yours was more security attacks, and one
Yes.
I kind of added on the AI fueled one. Right, you give 16-year-old kids Claude, and man, let them go.
Watch
yeah,
out
oh boy.
if they got
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a wild world 2026 is.
Yep.
All right. Well, TJ, do you want to talk about what your news is for the week?
Yeah, so I've got the Rising Stars. This is put together every year. I actually don't know who the person that actually published this is, but it's this Rising Stars list, and it's risingstars.js.org. You can check it out. And basically, they just measure the number of GitHub stars that projects get in a given year. So the increase, not your total, right? It's not React's not going to be number one because React's had accumulated its stars over a very long time. It's intended to find basically trendy things for 2025. And I thought it'd be fun to just cover the top couple on here because I was surprised by this list and I learned about a few things that I didn't even know existed. So the first one is this tool called N8N.
Mm-hmm.
And it has gotten, in 2025, it got 112,000 GitHub stars in one
Wow.
year, which is a bonkers number. And stars aren't everything, right? It's very much kind of a popularity contest. It doesn't necessarily mean a tool is good, but it does mean that there's a lot of people interested, especially at that scale. And so I looked into this tool a little bit. It's basically an automation tool. It's kind of like a souped up if this, that, this,
Yeah.
if this, then that type of tool.
It's a great way to put it. Yeah.
You're doing this like no code sort of sketching together automations. If this happens, maybe send a Discord message, or if this happens, maybe have Gemini summarize this and then send that summarization to me in an email or something like that. And you can put these automations together. And I think one of the reasons why it made this list, because this is a GitHub list, is that it's an open source tool. So you can either run their hosted setup where it's all in the cloud and whatever, or you can run this thing on like a Raspberry Pi from their GitHub repo, which is pretty slick. And it's a pretty cool business model too, right? Just make it available for people that want to hack on it, throw it on some local machine, but also just have a hosted option for people that just want to pay and have it out there running. So I didn't know anything. Have either of you heard of or used N8N before? It was completely new to me.
I've used it, but it was only because I was messing around as I do with like Raspberry Pi / home automation stuff. And before the AI agent stuff, which is I think what really got it to pop this year is that they've really gone into like the agent automation space, which actually nicely dovetails with home automation too. They were big in like hey, if I read this sensor, then turn these hue lights on and that kind of stuff, and creating those like kind of like no code workflows where it's like you snap in your hue module and you snap in your your sensor module, and then you can just kind of wire them up and use a nice graphical interface to do it, and that's cool. You gotta love that stuff.
Yeah, I personally have not used N8N. I've used Node-RED a little bit in other projects, which is kind of a similar thing where it's a very visual way of connecting different pieces. But yeah, this is, I mean, never heard of it. Very cool idea. Seems very useful in today's world of, especially with the software being more accessible to people who are not traditionally developers. It seems like it would definitely be a cool tool to have in your workflow.
And it's a German startup, and they raised 180 million in a Series C because
Whoa.
of course they did.
Wow.
So there's actually this is
Okay.
a tool that probably is going to stick around a little
Yeah,
bit.
I
So
think so.
Think so.
I think so.
I think
Wow.
they put in these AI automations, they put AI on their website, and the money flooded in.
Yeah.
But it does
That's all
seem to
you
be an
need.
actually useful tool though too.
It is a
So,
very useful tool. It
yeah.
is. It
That's
is
cool.
genuinely. It's well architected, and if you think about like if you're gonna go and build something small and integratable, like NAN seems like a great thing to integrate it into because that like in instantaneously adds on to the value of the whole system. So it's like, oh, I create a sensor, and then it's like you just wire that into N8N, and now it's like now you have access to everything. This is really really cool.
That's cool.
Well, second on the Rising Stars list, this is another one that I'd heard the name before, but I've never really used or anything, is React Bits. Have either of you used this thing before?
Yeah, isn't that a newsletter?
No, there's the Bytes is the newsletter.
Okay.
This is React Bits,
Bits.
which
Okay.
Think that I've heard of it. I think that I may have written Medium articles for this company
Oh.
in the past years ago. And I think that, they would pay me $300 an article or something like that. But I think this is what, then they put like an advertisement at the bottom for their thing. So I think this might be the same company. I'm not 100% sure though.
Well, I don't know about their past. What I can tell you is React Bits is a collection of fancy animated components.
Yeah, these
so
are
different
cool.
effects, text animations, cards. But what I think makes them unique is that they're distributed as a shared CN UI projects. So they
I love
have
that.
all the ability of you can just plop them in from the command line or just straight up copy and paste them. And it dovetails nicely into, because third on the list is ShadCN, and ShadCN has been on this list
Yeah.
in previous years as well. It's gotten the front end Fire seal of approval, and I think just it being number 3 and also kind of indirectly number 2 on this list just shows that this is a model that's really catching on and doing really well. And another thing about React Bits, if you go to their website, and this will dovetail into our next news item, but React Bits Pro is coming soon, and you can join the wait list if you want to get some pro versions of these ShadCN
These are
Pro
cool.
components.
Like I'm just messing around with it right now, and it's like some of the.
They're nice
I've
looking.
definitely seen some of these things. Like rotating text is one where it's like you have like a keyword, and then you got a box next to it, and then it changes out like creative thinking, creative coding, creative. Yeah. Okay, I get it. This is cool. I how did I not see this before? This is crazy.
It's really cool. That's why I kind of like these lists, is I find little things that are popular that I
absolutely.
didn't know existed. And what's great about these components, just the whole ShadCN model, is they're just so easy to drop into your project. Like it's just so much easier than previous models where you had to pick material or ant or whatever,
exactly.
these like pretty heavy component libraries. These
Yeah.
are just so easy to use. So it's just a cool one, and that I didn't know existed. So I thought I'd share the news.
Dang, electric border. This is cool. Got like a kind of like a zappy thing going on. This is neat. Man, I'm all about this. Okay.
All right. Going to use that in your next project.
Heck yeah.
I do have one honorable mention, because 4th place on the list is Excalidraw. Are you familiar with Excalidraw?
Huge Excalidraw fan.
Yeah.
I didn't realize, or I should say, I use it, and I never thought to actually star it on GitHub. I just, I love it. It's great. It's super useful. But yeah, never thought about like going to look at the source code of it.
Well, you can start and get them on the 2026 list.
I will.
For people that aren't familiar with Excalidraw, just quickly, it's basically an online whiteboarding, sketching, diagramming type of tool. And I also use it all the time. Anytime you need to make a quick thing internally, like a little flowchart or diagram or mock-up of something, it's such a good tool at doing those. And their main thing is that the graphics all look hand-drawn. They kind of have this effect where they give it a hand-drawn look artistically, and you kind of have to see it to know what I mean, but it's just a really useful tool. So if you have the need to do any sort of sketching online, making diagramming, Excalibur is a really good tool for that.
I think psychologically, it's cooler to have like that kind of hand drawn thing, because if you go into a meeting and you've got these kind of hand drawn like like this connects to that kind of thing, it sort of implies that it's like, this is my thought, my opinion, but not necessarily like ground truth. Whereas if it comes in with like straight lines and blocks, and it kind of like adds this, this kind of formality to it, like it has to be this way, right?
Yeah.
And so the kind of hand-drawn thing gives you that kind of sense of, hey, here's my take, let's jam on this and then see where we get to, as opposed to, this is how it's got to be,
Yeah, it's digital, but it has that sense that like you drew it out on paper, and that gives it just more of a personal feel,
a little more organic.
Yeah.
And I think actually one of Comic Sans thing.
One of the best things that I found for Excalibur, and I guess this is probably like a fork of the original, is that there's a web version where you can put in mermaid diagrams. So if Claude is generating mermaid diagrams for like some architecture that you're thinking of, or maybe it's your current application or some new feature, you can have Claude make the code, shove it into Excalibur in this browser, and then bam, there's your diagram that you can either export as a PNG or take a screenshot of or whatever. But it's, and also modify, because it's got like a little tab on the side where your code is there, so you can change stuff around if you need to, which is pretty cool.
That is cool, because one thing AI still sucks at is if you told Claude to make like a pretty graphical diagram of that mermaid diagram, it would generate complete garbage. So
although another hot tip, because I've been doing a lot of these sorts of diagrams, is if you use the Mermaid CLI, which is a downloadable tool for your app, for your Mac or whatever, you can download it and then tell Claude to use that to generate SVGs, PNGs, JPEGs, whatever, diagram image you'd like. And it can do that pretty well.
I didn't know that existed either.
I'll link to that. But yeah, that is there any other honorable mentions that you want to make, TJ, for the Rising Stars?
I don't think so. If people want to look through the full list, we'll have it in the show notes. I just wanted to call out the top couple, because I thought there was just some interesting tools to talk about, and hopefully everybody listening here picked up, one thing new and interesting they could give it a go.
Yeah, and now I'm looking through this, and there's plenty of stuff that I've never heard of, and then there's also stuff that we know, like Bun and Vite tooling. Vite is still way up there. Bun is the most popular tooling, though, which is kind of cool. So good for Bun.
Well, the most starred in 2025.
Yes,
specifically.
Right. Bun's been around for a while.
I actually got to contribute on that. Actually, I wrote up the AI summary on Rising Stars. So it's good stuff. And the guy behind it, I'm not sure if we're supposed to know, but is Michael Rambeau. So
Spoiler.
Yeah. Apparently.
Well, shout out to him, because it's a really cool site, really useful. So
totally. Yeah.
All right. So as TJ kind of teased, my news for this week is about AI, because when is it not about AI? But specifically, it is about Tailwind, and it is Tailwind saying how AI is killing their business model, which is very interesting. I honestly don't know why I didn't think about this, because AI summaries are killing everybody's traffic. But there was a GitHub issue that was opened in the Tailwind Labs GitHub, asking them to add an LLMs.txt endpoint so that LLMs can more easily integrate with Tailwind, understand how to use the library, et cetera, et cetera. And Adam, who is I think he's the creator of Tailwind. Do you know? Yes. Okay, so he came in and closed the feature after saying that they had to just lay off 75% of their engineering team because AI has dried up all of the traffic to the Tailwind website, and subsequently the Tailwind paid versions that they offer and use to keep themselves going in business. So their traffic is down 40% as of 2023 or since 2023, excuse me, even though Tailwind has just continued to grow in popularity and GitHub stars and actual NPM downloads and all of that stuff. And he does not want to make it easier for LLMs to continue to basically steal potential paying business from Tailwind and things that help keep the company going. And it's really sad to hear that.
And some other companies have kind of stepped up into the void there, because of this, which has gotten a lot of play, a lot of folks, and unfortunately some rather mean responses in there too. But Vercel came in and said, Guillermo stepped up and said, we're going to give you, we're going to do a big sponsorship and maybe something more long term. And then I think also Google AI, at least those are the ones I saw on X. Apparently there's even more. So folks have definitely kind of come out and said, whoa, there's and that's cool. I'm glad that this gets the conversation started and tactically helps them. But are they going to go and rehire those folks? Is that a sustainable business model? I don't know. And so we're still in this world of the big, tentpole things like Bun and Tailwind and Astro and to some degree more or less TanStack are getting like big dollars. But what about all the other OSS that's holding together the web? I don't know. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I do wonder. I very much think that this is harming their business because fewer people go to the website. But I do wonder how much of this is just, it is really hard to build a business around a set of UI components. And I know this very much firsthand because I spent a good chunk of my career trying to sell people UI components. And Tailwind Plus has this business model that is amazing for developers, where if you are it's Tailwind UI, I think they now call it Tailwind Plus, but either way, it's a one-time payment. So if you want their components, their premium components, you just give them, I'm just looking at the website right now, $300 for a developer or basically $1,000 for a team. And that's awesome from the perspective of people like us, because it's just like, oh, one time and I get these cool components. The problem is it's not that amazing from a business perspective, because basically your best possible users give you money once and then no longer give you money ever again. Yeah. And those users also will create more of a support workload as well, because if people run into problems with those components, they're going to tell you about those problems, but they're not giving ongoing payments towards that. And so it's just a really tough, and I feel for this team, because Tailwind is a extremely useful tool, and I feel like it's very badly underfunded compared to the amount of business value it actually generates. But I do wonder about the viability of Tailwind Plus as a business, just because I know firsthand how hard it is to get developers to pay for something like this. Developers just don't value premium UI components, for better or worse.
No, it's unfortunately true. We will find a way around them and do our own bespoke rolls of stuff whenever we can, if it's not free or cheap. But I really feel for the team. Laying off people is the worst, and especially because your revenues are so far down that you can't afford to keep them, that I can't imagine how that must be. But yeah, I feel bad. It makes me sad that this is also impacting developers who OSS has always had a problem with funding, and this just seems to be making it worse.
Yeah, it's got to be a massive drop. It's a massive drop. And I talked with Adam at React 2024, which was 2 years ago. And then again at 2025. Actually, I don't think I talked to him last year, but in 2024, it was amazing. I remember talking to him, and he was like, "Oh man, we got all this money coming in from the book and all of it, and it's like we almost have so much money we don't even know what to do with it, kind of thing." And then literally over the course of a year, 80% of that goes away, and your entire business model goes away. It's got to just be devastating. From a business perspective, or just from a personal perspective of like, what the heck happened?
Yeah, I think it was really awesome of him to just be very honest in this scenario too. I listened to, he put out like a short podcast that I listened to that he was very, very open about the situation. And I think that degree of it has led to this outpouring of support, both, support it just in terms of on Twitter and such, but also support in terms of, like Jack said, actual funding coming in as well. And so hopefully that'll lead to just a more sustainable model for the project, because it's become a critical piece of front-end infrastructure. In some cases, whether we like it or not, AI loves Tailwind, but
exactly. Yeah. So if you use Tailwind, if your team uses Tailwind at work, please consider throwing some money at them. Just help them stay in business, because they are, like you said, they've become a really big piece of the front end world, for better or for worse, and it would really be a shame if they went away.
Yep, especially if you're the type of person in a big company that's actually getting business value out of it and has the money to support projects like those. If you're in that sort of situation, just make your voice heard. Maybe you can
exactly.
Be a positive force.
Yeah.
All right. So that's a little bit of a downer for the main news, but I think we have some lightning news. So let's go on to that.
All right. Yeah, we got a much funner lightning news for you here today. CES has been happening. It's just wrapping up as we record this. And CES is a little near and dear to me because I've been there the last handful of years. This year I did not go. There's some others at Blues that are attending. I would say to stop by, but it'll be over by the time you are hearing this. But I always love looking at lists of gadgets coming out of CES. It's just so fun, right? Like it's cool to see what people are doing. And I mean, I could spend the next hour going over interesting things that I saw, but I thought I would just highlight one that I thought was the coolest thing that was announced. And that is these Lego smart bricks. And have either of you seen these at all, or seen them in the news or anything?
No, but I know they're expensive because it's Lego. But okay.
My husband told me that he saw a video of it, but I haven't seen it myself.
All right. So I have no idea on the pricing, probably outrageously expensive, but just the tech behind them is really super smart. So they designed these things, these smart bricks, to be basically regular Lego bricks. So they have the same standard connectors that you know extremely well from Lego, but they have lights in them. They can make sounds. They have an accelerometer in them. So if you're doing something like building a helicopter, right, and you're swooshing it around, it can detect the motion and play sounds appropriately. And they wirelessly charge. So they said that these bricks have about 45 minutes of battery during, quote, heavy play sessions. And then they come with this wireless charger thing where you can charge up to 2 bricks at a time, and they take about 2 hours to charge. So the idea is you just build these smart bricks into your just regular Lego designs. You maybe put 1 or 2 in at strategic locations or whatever. You play with them. They do some like smart, cool things, and then you can charge them up and play again. And I don't know. I just thought that the tech behind it, the fact that they chose to build these as basically regular Lego bricks and that they could shove all of the stuff necessary to make these effects happen into them is super cool.
Impressive. Yeah. Yeah, the example that I heard, and this makes total sense if you know my husband, is Star Wars. So he's like, you've got any of those Star Wars kits, you're building a Millennium Falcon, or you're building an X-Wing or a TIE Fighter, you put one of these smart bricks in, and suddenly you're barrel rolling, and it's making noises, and you're whooshing it around, and it's firing up the engines, and
you no longer have to do the pew 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 in your head. You can just have that.
You can actually get the automated pew pew pew. Yes, exactly.
And I bet you could do it with like the race cars as well. You'll get your engine sounds as you're racing your car up and down the table.
I guarantee it's. I think it's smart business for them too, because they could totally, if they make this sort of a standard part of their ecosystem, you would totally just buy a car set and it would tell you this comes with one Lego smart brick and it's pre-calibrated for this car, but you can use it for whatever. It'll be cool to see what they do with this.
Yeah. It's a really smart idea, though. I think it's a great idea for Lego.
I do hope, and I know this is like getting back in the realm of like bummer, but I do hope that there's a way to like change out the batteries in this thing, because so much of what we get nowadays are these devices that have integrated batteries that you cannot replace. and things like the little lavalier mic systems that people are buying nowadays. And it's basically like you're just kind of waiting for this thing to be, the battery to die before you have to replace it. It's planned obsolescence. And so we're putting a lot of stuff into the landfill. It's just like, these, batteries. So it'd be nice. I'm looking at the brick, and it's maybe you can kind of crack it open, and hopefully there's like a little, hearing aid battery or whatever you can pop out. Hopefully, Lego, please do that. But,
I'm
otherwise.
very skeptical because they design these things to not be swallowed by 3-year-olds.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
I think
you should
this
be
is
using
one
Duplo anyway if you're 3. Dude, seriously.
Yeah. Well, not be swallowed by 5-year-olds. Then.
Okay, fine. I don't know what this mythical 5-year-old is eating. Dude, yeah. Okay.
Oh, but that's a cool idea, though. I think.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about what's making us happy this week. About that. All right, TJ, what's making you happy this week?
Pokemon Go is making me happy again. I think I've talked about my love of Pokemon Go on this podcast a few times, but they've released a couple new features that have me playing the game a little bit more here. These, over the holiday season too, where you have a little more time to, to fool around and play. So the two big new things is they raised the level cap. So the max level in Pokemon Go used to be 50. It is now 80. So
oh, jeez.
They cranked that up and they kind of rebalanced it. But there's now like a new, those of us that play the game way too much, we're on level 50 for multiple years.
Assuming you're 50,
right?
Yeah. Okay.
So we were level capped 5 years ago or whatever. And now there's a new goal to go towards. So the numbers can get bigger. So that's one draw. And then the second thing is that they announced remote trading. So you've always been able to trade Pokemon in Pokemon Go, or at least you have since like 2 years into the game, something like that. You can trade Pokemon, but they've always required that you be in person to do the trading.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's a game that very much encourages social, and I think that's very good for the game. I've made friends in the area specifically because of Pokemon Go and just getting together and making trades and such. But they are opening it up to remote trading. Of course, it's like the typical mobile game. To do it, you have to interact with the game a whole ton, right? That's sort of the model behind this. But it's going to be pretty fun because I have some friends that play the game that I just don't see anymore, right? Because they've moved away. I have some friends in Europe that play that I know that I'll never trade with because I'm not going to Europe just to make a Pokemon Go trade or whatever. But it's encouraging me to play because, as someone who's played this game for way too long, I have some very rare and interesting Pokemon. I mean, I've traveled to places to play Pokemon. I've went to events, and these things are just rotting in my digital box, right? Because I have them and other people could use them. And so being able to trade those with friends in other places is really fun. So those two things have gotten me playing a little bit more. But, I'm an addict. I've been playing this game for almost a decade at this point, but they're keeping it going though. Like a lot of games just kind of go to some point where they just kind of coast, and they've done a good job keeping the game fresh and interesting for those of us that are still around.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it seems like Pokemon is kind of having a resurgence lately, just in general, like movies and trading. My nephews were playing with trading cards when I was visiting at Christmas. So yeah, there's definitely some Pokemon interest that's reappearing, I think.
#1 media franchise in the world. Bigger than Disney.
Really?
Bigger than Star Wars.
What?
Wow.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I think wow. That's amazing.
Look into the Pokemon's revenue for merchandise is absurd. The numbers will blow you away, and part of it is because it's such an international brand. Because Disney doesn't have they are a worldwide brand, of course, but they're not huge in like random South American countries or just to pick some random region in the world. Whereas Pokemon has true global penetration, and they make a lot of money off of merch. So once you start looking for Pokemon merch, you find it everywhere, and Pikachu takes his cut on all those transactions.
Don't mess with Pikachu.
Yeah.
Impressive. Oh, nice. All right, Jack, what's making you happy this week?
Miami Hurricanes. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
So they're back, baby. They're back. Yeah, no, I was a big fan of Miami when my wife was in school there, and then I was also working there. And that was back in like the 90s. So it was back in the Jimmy Johnson era, and they were a fantastic team back then.
Yeah,
Kind of the bad boys of football. And after that, it just kind of took a long stretch of downtime. But now they've come back, and I gotta tell you, like I was I lived a much more stress-free life before I paid attention to college ball. But now it's back, and oh my God, last night, man, like in the fourth quarter, it was like 3 lead changes, and I was in a bar with a lot of people, and it was crazy. At the end, like we got our last touchdown, and somebody threw their jacket up so high that it caught on one of the fire extinguisher lines, like the sprinkler lines, and so it was hanging up there. So a drunk guy decided he was going to jump up on the wall and try and grab it. And the bartender was like, "What the heck are you doing?" And gave him like the stern talking to. I don't know if we're going to be invited back, but yeah, no, it was a crazy scene. And now we're in the national championships, so woohoo! And it could be, interestingly, against the Oregon Ducks. So that's going to pit me against my neighbor, who's a huge Ducks fan. So that's going to be really interesting.
Man.
I've got my sister-in-law is actually here visiting, and she works for the University of Indiana. So
okay, all right.
Because of that, we are we're an Indiana household after all the Michigan teams are gone, right?
Yeah. You always have fallbacks, right?
Yeah. So unfortunately, we will be rooting for Indiana. But what I love about college football this year is that all the traditional teams are gone and out. So Ohio State lost, Georgia lost, Alabama lost. Great. At this point, if Miami wins, that's awesome. If Indiana wins, that's awesome. If Oregon wins, that's awesome. They've never won it. So, getting new teams in there is great.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what college ball should be. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very nice. Go Hurricanes. All right. So what's making me happy this week is a super goofy gift that my husband gave me for Christmas, and it is called the Flip It Bottle Emptying Caps.
Ooh.
What?
So if you have... I know, it's so goofy. But if you have ever had a dressing bottle or maybe a lotion bottle upstairs or shampoo, conditioner, whatever, and it's got one of those pumps, or you just get to the bottom and you have to turn it upside down and it won't balance and you can't get the last of the stuff out.
My God, I'm looking at this now. This is...
It's so
Hold on. I'll be right back. Hold on.
Yeah. I'm looking at this right now. My wife would love this thing. It's so dumb, but yeah.
So for everybody who is not looking at this right now, it is basically a little cap system that you can put onto any bottle. Basically, it's kind of got universal little adapters. You can put it onto any sort of bottle and it flips it upside down, and it has 3 little legs that hold the bottle upside down stable. And then you just pull down the little cap and you can squeeze all the last bits out of the bottle. It's genius. Such a good idea.
My wife has been asking me for this for a while. So I literally just 2 days ago modeled and printed one of these. I had no idea this thing existed. And so this is like custom to the honey, like the hot honey that she uses. It's got the right, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's hilarious. And yes, it does exactly this. It's like little legs and it just doop. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And does it work?
It works
well?
great. Yeah, it works fine. Okay. This is cooler though, because I think it actually, like, there's a hole, I guess, in the bottom of their design. Yeah, okay. So their design is slightly superior to mine, but that's okay.
Well, they have different adapters. So depending on how big or small your bottle is, you can put one of these adapters in the top and then it just screws in, and then you put the bottle in whatever size it is. And it just holds it up. So everything falls to the bottom and you can get those last drops out, because I hate when bottles do that and you've got like, a little bit that the pump just can't reach or it just won't come out or whatever. It's such a goofy idea, but
that's
it works
superior
so nice.
Because it still works, right?
Yes.
Whereas mine, it doesn't actually, like, it just holds it upside down and then you got to pull it back out again and use the regular dispensing mechanism like a peasant, but like this is much better.
And this is like a fundamental disagreement in my marriage, because I'm always like just throw it out. There's
Dude,
there's maybe like 2 or 3 cents
don't even
worth
go
of
there.
lotion
Oh my
in
God,
there.
tell me about it.
Just
Yeah.
There's
get
so
rid
much
of it.
left still.
I know. Oh my God. My wife's the same way. I'm like, she's got like adapters that go between like a refill bottle and a regular bottle and things. I've made these adapters, spent hours 3D modeling and doing different variations of it and stuff. It's hilarious. Just to get
Yeah.
like
One
another
dollop of, yes.
like
Gotta
one
get
dollop
it.
of Lubriderm,
Yep.
like, okay.
Don't be
Yeah,
wasteful.
That was worth it. Yeah, well.
Yes. So if you live in a household like this where one of you is always trying to get the last drops out of some bottle, I would highly recommend these. They're pretty great so far.
Sounds awesome. Okay.
I love it.
Yeah. There you go.
All
Or if you
right.
have a 3D printer, just hit us up in the channel and I'll send you the models for what I have.
Yeah, because they're basically charging, it looks like $16 for a couple pieces of plastic. So
Dang. Okay.
Yep. Business model right there,
Yeah,
apparently.
there you go,
that's
man.
better business model than Tailwind Plus right there. Just
Yes. All right.
Ew,
Well, I think that's going to wrap us up for this first episode of 2026. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And thank you, as always, to our sponsor, the Blue Collar Coder channel on YouTube. If you want to come hang out with us, we have a Discord channel. We're on X. We're on Blue Sky. We're on all those good things. So thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.
yeah. Bye, everybody.
See you then.